Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to Audiobook Dynasty. If you want early access and even more parts for free, make sure to join me on Patreon. The Pirate King, Gold Roger, has been captured. Gold Roger, the Pirate King, will be executed in Logue Town. The place where it began shall also be the place where it ends. Gold Roger will be executed in Logue Town. Newsbirds soared through the skies, scattering newspapers like falling leaves. Papers that usually cost 50 berries a copy were now freely drifting through the air, littering every corner of the world. Rosinante casually reached out and snatched one from the sky. Gold Roger, hi? So the Great Pirate Era is finally about to begin. Rosinante murmured as he stared at the headline. His full name was Donquixote Rosinante, younger brother of the warlord Donquixote Doflamingo, adoptive son of the marine hero Sengoku, and the original wielder of the silent fruit. But the Rosinante standing here today wasn't the same one from the original story. He was a transmigrator. In his previous life, Sanders was just an ordinary college student who had just completed military training. When he woke up, he found himself inside Rosinante's body. At that very moment, Rosinante had passed out from crying after witnessing his father's murder at the hands of his own brother. That was when Sanders's soul crossed over and merged with Rosinante's. Once the fusion completed, Sanders's soul took control. After all, he was a mentally mature adult, while the young Rosinante's spirit had been weakened by grief, making it easy for Sanders to absorb his consciousness. Gaining access to Rosinante's memories brought a wry smile to Sanders's face. As one of the big three shonen manga series, One Piece was universally known. And because of Doflamingo and Law's popularity, Rosinante had become a memorable side character. However, if you were to rank the top 10 most useless devil fruits in One Piece, Rosinante's silent fruit would undoubtedly make the list. The power of silence, which supposedly helped improve sleep quality. When Sanders first saw Rosinante in Law's flashback arc, he thought, is this fruit just a gag? And combined with Rosinante's graffiti antics, Sanders was convinced it was a gag. But then came the real kicker. From Rosinante's memories, Sanders realized he had already eaten the fruit he considered a joke. After the Donquixote family was expelled from the Holy Land of Mary Gosa and their celestial dragon status was exposed, they were relentlessly hunted down. Their home was torched, Rosinante's mother fell gravely ill, and with hunger gnawing at their bellies, Doflamingo dragged his little brother to scavenge for food in the trash. That was when Rosinante unknowingly ate a strange fruit. All he remembered was that it tasted absolutely horrible, but he didn't think much of it at the time. After all, it came from a garbage heap, he just assumed it was rotten fruit. Even now, Rosinante had no idea what he'd eaten. But Sanders, who was familiar with One Piece, knew instantly it was a devil fruit. After merging with Rosinante's soul, Sanders's spirit grew stronger and even gained the ability to evolve with the body. And it was thanks to this newfound spiritual strength that he could clearly sense the fruit's ability. It was indeed the silent fruit from the manga. Transmigrating into this world wasn't the issue. Not becoming the protagonist or a powerful main character wasn't either. Even ending up as Rosinante was fine. If push came to shove, he could always cling to Doflamingo's or Sengoku's leg and eventually get his hands on a better fruit to boost his strength. Even without Doffy or Sengoku's help, Rosinante had enough knowledge to track down a couple of strong devil fruits himself. Sooner or later, he'd make a name for himself in the One Piece world. But eating the silent fruit? That was a death sentence for anyone dreaming of power through devil fruits. Not only did it saddle him with the crippling weaknesses to seawater and seastone, but it also sealed off the power up through fruit route entirely. Eventually, Rosinante left the Donquixote family. Sure, staying with Doflamingo had its perks, but after inheriting this body, he also inherited a deep emotional scar. Rosinante didn't want to stay with Doflamingo. Not because he wanted revenge, Doflamingo was still his biological brother. But after witnessing Doflamingo murder their father with his own hands, Rosinante had realized something terrifying: Doflamingo was a born demon. And he wanted nothing to do with him. So, Rosinante walked away from the Donquixote family. Although the silent fruit wasn't good for combat, it was a top-tier stealth tool. It could erase sound and conceal movements so effectively that no one in the entire Donquixote family even noticed when he vanished. Perhaps they didn't care. All they ever cared about was Doflamingo. After leaving the family, fate took a turn, perhaps due to the butterfly effect of the transmigration, and he never encountered Sengoku. Instead, he wandered the North Blue alone. He worked odd jobs and was cheated by heartless employers, became a thief and got chased through the streets, fought wild beasts for food, hunted pirates for bounty money, and was even pursued by the world government, or more precisely, by the celestial dragons. Doflamingo had once taken their father's severed head back to Marijois, begging to be reinstated as a celestial dragon. But they rejected him. He nearly lost his life there. Worse still, Doflamingo accidentally discovered a terrifying secret: the national treasure of Marijois. From that point on, the celestial dragons issued a kill order on the entire Donquixote bloodline. As one of the last two remaining true Donquixote descendants, Rosinante was implicated. The CP agents came after him relentlessly. Luckily, with the silent fruit, he managed to escape both overt and covert assassination attempts time and again. Logtown, hi? Guess I'll go check it out. I've been dropped into this world, how could I not go see something this historic for myself? Rosinante chuckled as he looked at the newspaper in his hand. With Rosinante's background, joining the Marines was out of the question. Becoming a bounty hunter wasn't possible either. The only path left for him was piracy. Rosinante had been expecting news of the Pirate King's capture for some time. Over the years, CP agents had never stopped hunting him. Perhaps their repeated failures had caused internal pressure, because they eventually sent a CP0 agent after him and Sanders had nearly died at that agent's hands. So when he saw the newspaper headline Roger caught and set for execution in Logtown, he finally let out a breath of relief. Because the dawn of the Great Pirate Era would stir the seas into chaos. Countless people would rush to the oceans. The Marines and world government would be overwhelmed, and only then would the pressure on him finally begin to ease. Foo. Isn't this my adorable little brother? As soon as Rosinante stepped into Logtown, he ran into Doflamingo and his crew. As expected. There's no way you'd miss an event this big, Doffy, Rosinante replied coolly. Running into Doflamingo in Logtown was entirely within Rosinante's expectations. In the original story, Doflamingo was already present during the Pirate King's execution. Even in this altered life, Rosinante knew his brother well enough to anticipate his presence. Doflamingo would never skip out on a spectacle like this. He. You're so cold now. Weren't you the cutest little thing when you were young? Always calling out big brother so sweetly. Doflamingo grinned. The family's already broken, so what's the point of reminiscing? The one who pulled the trigger that shattered it all, wasn't that you? Rosinante's voice was calm but carried a sharp edge. Oi. Is this really Rosinante? Haven't seen him for a few years and now he's all full of himself. Doffy, want me to teach him a lesson? Treble sneered, stepping forward. Phew. You've got every right to hate me, but there's something you're wrong about. Doflamingo's eyes gleamed as he spoke. It wasn't me who shattered the family. It was our father. The moment he chose to abandon the celestial dragons, the moment our mother died, our home was already broken. I never had that man as a father. But I still do that my little brother would come back home. There's always a place for you beside me. Let's not kid ourselves. I have no interest in living alongside someone who could murder his own father. No matter how you spin it, you can't erase the fact that you pulled the trigger on your own kin. If I stayed by your side, I'd be constantly wondering when you'd come up with a reason to aim at me too, Rosinante replied flatly. Phew. That's harsh. But you're still my little brother, after all, Doflamingo said with a forced smile. You think I'm still that same Rosinante you could bend to your will? Rosinante shot Doflamingo a disdainful glance. Looks like Treble was right. You really have become arrogant these past few years. As your older brother, I have a duty to bring you back to reality. As he spoke, the veins on Doflamingo's forehead bulged. In an instant, he lashed out with a powerful kick. And I'm not the only one who's changed. Rosinante countered with a punch of his own. Fist met foot, and a shockwave burst out from the clash, sending a gust of wind rippling through the street. Armament Haki! Diamante shouted, eyes wide. Both Rosinante and Doflamingo's limbs were cloaked in a layer of black clearly imbued with armament Haki. It's no surprise Doffy has mastered armament Haki at his age. After all, he has the potential of a king, he even has Conqueror's Haki. But Rosinante, to think he's also awakened it at this age. Treble exclaimed in disbelief. You've definitely grown stronger over the years. Your bounty poster already hinted at it. But I suppose it makes sense, you are, after all, a Donquixote. One of the 20 royal bloodlines that founded the world government. If you can survive long enough, power like this is only natural. However, Doflamingo's tone suddenly darkened as a tremendous pressure burst from him, washing over the area like a tidal wave. Weaker onlookers dropped unconscious without even knowing what hit them. You're destined to kneel to me. Because there can only be one head of the family, Doflamingo declared, face full of arrogance. It's just Conqueror's Haki. Nothing to brag about. Only someone like you would cling to it like a trophy, Rosinante said as he lifted his head calmly. A moment later, an equally fearsome wave of pressure surged from his body, colliding with Doflamingo's aura. The air between them twisted and sparked, dark lightning crackled where their wills clashed. Conqueror's Haki. He has the same royal spirit as Captain. Impossible. Besides Doffy, Rosinante has it too. Phew. I really did underestimate you. Doflamingo's expression turned serious for the first time. You sure you don't want to return to the family? You already know my answer, Rosinante said, his voice like cold steel. Every user of Conqueror's Haki has an unshakable will. Fine, then I'll just beat you into submission. What a shame, though, such a waste of talent. 5 color strings. As he unleashed his signature move, razor-sharp strings of 5 vibrant colors shot from Doflamingo's hands. Clang! Rosinante drew the sword at his waist just in time, intercepting the attack. His armament Haki was newly awakened and not yet refined enough to withstand Doflamingo's piercing threads for long. The battlefield became a whirlwind of flashing swords and deadly strings. Their conqueror's Haki surged through the air, sparking black lightning with every clash. Blades sliced, threads slashed, and the surrounding area was torn to shreds. Anything caught between them was instantly cut apart. Amazing! Rosinante is holding his own against the Lord Doflamingo. Gladius gasped. No. Doffy hasn't even used his full strength yet, Treble said grimly. What's that? Citizens in the distance stared, eyes wide, as the shockwaves and crackling energy lit up the sky. Someone's fighting over there. Conqueror's Haki. That's the clash of 2 Conqueror's Haki users. A few knowledgeable onlookers recognized the fearsome aura immediately. 2 wielders of kingly will appearing just like that. Logtown really is a gathering place for storms, someone murmured thoughtfully. Whoa, this is scary. 2 kings just showing up at once. How terrifying. A beam of light suddenly shot down from the sky and transformed into a man. His beady eyes and twisted smile formed a grotesque grin. Though he spoke of fear, not a single trace of it could be found on his face, only scorn and mockery. Borsalino. The moment he appeared, both Doflamingo and Rosinante turned their heads toward him, their expressions instantly tensing with wariness. Borsalino, future Admiral Kizaru, was still just a vice-admiral at this point, but his strength was already monstrous. Seeing him appear, the members of the Donquixote family grew visibly anxious. So scary, Borsalino drawled mockingly. Donquixote Doflamingo, the sea thug. And the rest of the Donquixote crew, not to mention Rosinante the Silent Blade. What do you think? Should I just arrest all of you right here? His eyes gleamed as he stared directly at Rosinante, his voice dripping with faux innocence. A monster vice-admiral from the Marines, huh? Phew. You here to catch us? Doflamingo asked, smirking. It's not exactly the right time to hunt pirates. Borsalino replied lazily. But since you've all decided to cause trouble in Logtown, don't blame me if I haul you in. Foo. Aren't you afraid this could spark a full-scale war between pirates and the Navy? Doflamingo laughed sinisterly. He. The Whitebeard pirates are just roaming these waters, you know. Right now, Logtown had become a powder keg, a gathering place for the world's top forces. Even the Whitebeard pirates were lurking nearby. Although the Navy had concentrated its strength here, they didn't dare make a move too soon. Especially not before the execution of the Pirate King. Any misstep could ignite a war not against one crew, but the entire pirate world. And while the Navy was strong, it wasn't invincible. The Fleet Admiral's orders were clear: don't stir trouble. I don't want any either, Borsalino said lazily, that oily smirk never leaving his face. But if you guys are the ones asking for it. If I let you run wild here and the Navy just stands by watching, then where's our authority? So even if I arrest you all here and now, no one's going to question it. Damn it! Retreat! Doflamingo's expression darkened, and he gave the order. With that, the Donquixote family began withdrawing. Doflamingo knew picking a fight with the Navy right now was unwise, not with so many top Navy brass present. Even Borsalino, just a vice-admiral at the moment, already had power comparable to an admiral. They didn't call him a monster for nothing. Trying to leave now? Too late. Yasakani no Megatama. Borsalino's hands lit up with a blinding glow. Run! Treble shouted. Don't you dare hurt Doffy, shrieked Pika, slamming his hands into the ground. Stone walls erupted from the earth, shielding the retreating Donquixote family. In the next moment, a barrage of laser lights exploded through the air. The battlefield was consumed by the relentless hail of Borsalino's light-based attacks, each beam causing a chain of deafening explosions. No wonder he's a future admiral, what terrifying power, Rosinante muttered, slipping away in the opposite direction amidst the chaos. But I'm not here to fight, time to vanish. As the smoke cleared, Borsalino paused, his attack ceasing. They got away? Pretty impressive. He narrowed his eyes. The Donquixote family really is a pain. I can't take them all down alone. And Doflamingo's connections in the underworld make any move against him complicated. He turned his attention toward Rosinante's retreating figure. But that guy Rosinante, now he's a soft target. Might as well bag him and report some results. Borsalino turned into a beam of light and disappeared. Hey, kid, ever been kicked at the speed of light? Borsalino suddenly appeared beside Rosinante, his leg already swinging. But Rosinante, as if expecting it, raised his arm in advance, cloaking it in armament Haki clang. He blocked the light-speed kick squarely. You're really going to ignore Doflamingo and chase me instead? Isn't that a little unfair? Rosinante said coldly, holding off the Admiral's strike. Not bad. You've got solid observation haki. But what can I say, you're alone. Catching Doflamingo is way too much trouble. You, on the other hand? Easy catch. Borsalino sneered, his tone dripping with contempt. Rosinante's eyes narrowed. So, you really have underestimated me. Suddenly, Rosinante looked up, locking eyes with Borsalino. Tell me something, has anyone ever said you rely too much on your devil fruit? At those words, Borsalino's brow twitched, irritation flashing across his face. But just then, Rosinante twisted his grip and grabbed Borsalino's leg with his hand. Stillness, fruit of silence. Rosinante growled. A strange, invisible force surged through his palm and into Borsalino's body. In that instant, Borsalino's expression changed dramatically. He instinctively tried to pull back, but his body didn't respond as expected. His Logia powers had gone silent. What? My powers? They're dormant, he gasped. You're the user of the silence fruit, but it can do this. Indeed, it could. Through countless battles and near-death escapes from CP0, Rosinante had steadily grown stronger. With the fusion of 2 lifetimes worth of soul, his observation haki had awakened early, and as his body matured, so too did his spiritual power. He realized that this powerful haki had incredible synergy with the silence fruit. Sound is just vibration. The silence fruit cancels sound, meaning it can still vibrations. So he wondered, if it could silence vibrations, could it silence other things? As his observation haki grew stronger, and with a little creative thinking, Rosinante had begun unlocking deeper layers of his fruit's potential. He discovered a terrifying truth: the silence fruit wasn't just a gimmick. Properly developed, it could rival, or even counter, Whitebeard's so-called strongest paramecia, the tremor fruit. Of course, power lies in the user. Rosinante wasn't nearly strong enough to challenge Whitebeard, not yet. But one technique he had just recently developed, fruit silence, allowed him to force a devil fruit into temporary dormancy, as if jamming a signal. It wasn't invincible. Against a powerful user like Borsalino, it should have only partially suppressed the powers. But Borsalino hadn't expected it and let his guard down. Soul-chasing silence blade. At the same time he silenced Borsalino's fruit, Rosinante's other hand flashed to his sword hilt. Shing! A blade gleamed, drawn with absolute silence, not a whisper of steel. He struck. This wasn't the silent blade technique that had made him famous, this was something new. This slash made no sound, no aura, not even resistance. All friction and drag had been silenced. With no sound and no air resistance to slow it, the blade moved faster than sound. A heartbeat later, blood exploded from Borsalino's chest. A massive gash ripped through his uniform. He hadn't even had time to coat himself in armament haki. He stared at Rosinante in disbelief and then, without another word, transformed into light and vanished into the horizon. He escaped. Rosinante lowered his blade, slipping it silently back into its sheath. Impossible. Future Fleet Admiral Sengoku, currently a Marine Admiral, shot to his feet, clutching a den mushi, his expression filled with disbelief at the message relayed through the snail. What happened? Asked Vice Admiral Kizaru, the chief strategist of the Marines, who happened to walk in just then. She raised an eyebrow at Sengoku's rare display of shock. Borsalino was defeated. He's severely injured and unconscious, Sengoku replied grimly. Could it have been one of the legendary pirates? Kizaru asked with a frown. She knew Borsalino's strength well. Among the younger generation of Marines, few could match him. And with his Pika no Mi, even if he lost a fight, escape was never an issue. To injure him so badly and leave him unconscious, only the veterans of the pirate world could pull that off. Right now, Logtown was crawling with those old legends. They might not be on the same level as Roger, Shiki, or Whitebeard, but they weren't far behind either. No. The one who defeated Borsalino was Donquixote Rosinante, also known as the Silent Blade. And he did it in a single move. Sengoku's face was dark, his voice low. Donquixote Rosinante? Doflamingo's younger brother? If I remember correctly, he's the user of the silence fruit. His sword skills are decent, and paired with the fruit's sound-nullifying abilities, he earned the title Silent Blade. Last known bounty, 76 million berries. His strength should only be around that of a rear admiral. He shouldn't be anywhere near capable of defeating Borsalino, Kizaru mused, clearly puzzled. The silence fruit. I recall it not being particularly powerful. Neither Rosinante's own abilities nor the fruit's power should be enough to inflict such serious injuries on someone like Borsalino. And yet, he barely escaped using the speed of his light powers, and now he lies unconscious. Sengoku's brows were tightly knit. This Rosinante is definitely not as simple as he seems. He's been hiding his true strength all along. And if he managed to stop Borsellino from escaping using light speed, then perhaps the silence fruit has abilities we've never imagined, Kizaru said gravely. This complicates things. Just as the storm over Logtown looms, now a tidal wave crashes in, Sengoku said, tension rising in his voice. Dispatch Kuzan and Sakazuki, Kizaru advised sternly. There's no other choice. Someone, summon Kuzan and Sakazuki at once. Sengoku barked. Yes, sir. A messenger sprinted off to carry out the order. Moments later, Aokiji Kuzan and Akainu Sakazuki walked into the room. Admiral Sengoku, Vice Admiral Kizaru, they greeted. You two are to lead a squad to seal off all of Logtown. Search every corner and bring back Donquixote Rosinante. I want him found immediately, Sengoku commanded. Rosinante. Kuzan and Sakazuki exchanged a surprised glance. The name was unfamiliar, and they didn't understand why this particular pirate warranted such a high-priority mission during such a critical time. Just earlier, Borsellino was gravely injured at Rosinante's hands and is still unconscious, Sengoku explained with weight in his tone. Both Kuzan and Sakazuki were stunned. As fellow members of the Marine's monster vice admirals, they knew better than anyone just how powerful Borsellino was. For him to lose, and not just lose but be left unconscious? And at the hands of someone virtually unknown? That defied belief, especially since Borsellino's fruit allowed him to escape almost any situation. Rosinante, former world noble, of the Donquixote family. Younger brother to Doflamingo. A silence fruit user. Current bounty, 76 million berries, Sengoku recited, handing them Rosinante's file. But given he could injure Borsellino to such an extent, that fruit must possess abilities we've yet to understand. Be cautious when you confront him, he warned. Yes, sir, the two vice admirals responded and turned to leave, setting the operation in motion. At such a sensitive time, let's hope this doesn't spark a full-scale war, Garp said, stepping in and glancing at Sengoku. We have no choice, Sengoku sighed. News of Borsellino's defeat won't stay hidden. The Marines have been heavily promoting the three vice admirals as a symbol of strength. His fall will deal a serious blow to our reputation. If we don't respond, we'll lose all deterrent power. At the moment of Roger's execution, the stage is already full of young pirates who don't know their place, and old pirates waiting to fan the flames. If we let this go, chaos will erupt. Kuzan and Sakazuki need to send a message. Only then can we minimize the damage, Kizaru added. Let's hope it works, Sengoku said with a sigh. At the very least, there won't be war before Roger's execution. After all, the ones who want Roger dead aren't limited to the Marines, Kizaru said confidently. Right now, Logtown had become the focal point of the world. No secrets could survive here, any movement would be known to every major power. The clash between Rosinante and Doflamingo's conqueror's Haki had already drawn enough attention. When Borsellino stepped in, it only added fuel to the fire. And when word spread that Borsellino had been defeated, the shockwaves echoed across all factions. Fu. I didn't expect Rosinante to be hiding such strength. He actually managed to take down Borsellino. Doflamingo was surprised when he heard the news. Even he found Borsellino troublesome to deal with. In fact, even the entire Donquixote family together might not have stood a chance against him. That Rosinante managed it, clearly, there were depths to his brother he hadn't seen before. Hey, Doffy! You sure Rosinante had the strength to beat Borsellino? Treble asked suspiciously. Who knows? Doflamingo's eyes flickered with a strange light. It seemed he didn't know this younger brother as well as he thought. The silent blade. I wonder how deadly his sword truly is, muttered a man with hawk-like eyes, a gleam of interest in his gaze. Old man. Vice Admiral Borsellino's been defeated. Marco cried out, holding a den mushi and staring at Whitebeard in astonishment. Gurururura. That flashy brat? Interesting. Who was it? Whitebeard laughed. He knew how strong the three monster vice admirals were. There were no rookies strong enough to take them on, so he assumed it was one of his old rivals making a move. It was a pirate called the Silent Blade. Bounties only 76 million. Doesn't ring any bells, probably a newcomer, Marco replied. Gurururura. Interesting. The new age hasn't even begun, and already the rookies are starting to dance, Whitebeard chuckled with a hint of admiration. Roger, so this is the new era you wanted to unleash. The defeat of one of the Navy's monster vice admirals sent ripples through Logtown, stirring some of the rookie pirates into restless motion. But the moment Aokiji and Akainu were dispatched, their overwhelming power struck like a thunderclap, instantly suppressing any signs of rebellion. The two admirals lived up to their fearsome titles. Any pirate foolish enough to cause a stir in Logtown was swiftly and brutally dealt with. The show of force not only reasserted the authority of the Navy's three vice admirals but also magnified the reputation of the man who had defeated one of them, Rosinante. After their sweeping crackdown, peace gradually returned to Logtown. None of the rookies could match the strength of Aokiji or Akainu, and the veteran pirates had no interest in igniting war at such a volatile time. But beneath the calm surface, everyone could sense it dangerous undercurrents swirled. Despite the Navy's all-out efforts, they could not locate Rosinante. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Eventually, Aokiji and Akainu were forced to return and report their failure. It was to be expected, Sengoku said calmly. The silence fruit can nullify sound transmission, and in Rosinante's hands, it's evolved into a potent tool for concealment. Even the world government had to mobilize CP agents around the globe and deploy special devil fruit users just to track him down. Your mission was more about quelling rookie pirates in Logetown than actually capturing him. Just in time, he added. Borsalino has regained consciousness. Let's go see him. Yes, sir, Aokiji and Akainu responded, their faces expressionless as always. Sengoku, along with Aokiji, Akainu, and Vice Admiral Kizaru, headed to the infirmary at the Logetown Naval Branch. When they entered, they found Borsalino unusually composed, his face marked with a rare seriousness. Without delay, he recounted the battle with Rosinante in full detail. Despite his usual lewd demeanor, Borsalino was proud to a fault. As a wielder of the glint-glint fruit, he viewed the world with detached arrogance, believing nothing and no one could force him to take things seriously. But this defeat, it changed something. You're saying Rosinante's ability temporarily suppressed your devil fruit powers? Sengoku's expression turned grave. I admit I let my guard down, but in that instant, Rosinante managed to silence my abilities. When I tried to reawaken them, it felt sluggish. Like waking up from a deep nap. Rosinante called this technique devil fruit silence, Borsalino said, his tone uncharacteristically solemn. What a terrifying ability, Aokiji muttered. Borsalino shot him a glare that was supposed to be my line, his eyes seemed to say. A power that can silence devil fruit abilities. Can the silence fruit really do that? Sengoku's voice was heavy with concern. It's not entirely surprising, Kizaru said thoughtfully. Devil fruits are known for their mystique. Most pirates who consume them tend to be brutish and straightforward. If they get something powerful and direct, they obsessively hone it. But if the fruit seems useless like the silence fruit, few bother to explore its deeper potential. Naturally, such hidden capabilities go undiscovered. But if Rosinante could develop a method to suppress devil fruits, she continued, what's stopping him from silencing physical strength, haki, even life itself? Or, space and time? That would be a disaster, Sengoku said, his voice low. This sin must be erased swiftly and completely, Akainu declared. No need to panic, Sengoku said. I'll report this to Fleet Admiral Kong and recommend an increase to Rosinante's bounty. For now, our top priority is executing the most notorious pirate of them all, Gold Roger. How's Roger doing? Aokiji asked. Garp is personally escorting him. He should arrive in Logetown in a few days. If Vice Admiral Garp is in charge, then nothing will go wrong, Aokiji replied. Thousands of meters above Logetown. Well, now that my abilities are exposed, pulling tricks on people won't be so easy anymore. The Navy couldn't find Rosinante because he was floating high above the clouds, well beyond their reach. Even if they turned every stone in Logetown, they wouldn't find a trace of him. He had used the silence fruit to mute gravity itself, temporarily nullifying its pull to achieve flight. Ever since awakening his observation haki, Rosinante had gained the ability to sense his own and others' presence. While fleeing the world government's endless pursuit, he had gradually learned how to silence his own presence, effectively erasing his aura. But that sparked a deeper thought in his mind. If I can silence presence, can I silence other things? Resistance? Friction? Force? Elements? Haki? Life? Devil fruit abilities? Even space and time itself? The idea alone startled even him. But then he thought, why not? If someone like Bartholomew Kuma could refine the pawpaw fruit to repel anything, even pain and space itself, why couldn't his silence fruit do the same, only by silencing instead of repelling? Of course, having the idea was one thing. Making it reality was another. The only reason he could mute his own presence was because his observation haki could detect it, allowing him to suppress it. So if he wanted to silence gravity, resistance, or friction, concepts that are intangible and elusive, he'd first have to perceive them. And so, Rosinante threw himself into relentless training, honing his sensory capabilities. Fortunately, the merging of two souls had given him extraordinary spiritual strength. As his body matured, so too did his soul, allowing his observation haki to grow rapidly in power. Through focused development, Rosinante finally reached a point where he could sense gravity, resistance, and friction and suppress them. He called this power, the force of stillness. After developing the power of silence, Rosinante crafted a terrifying technique, the soul-reaping blade. By silencing friction, resistance, breath, and sound, all the factors that slow a strike. Rosinante unleashed a slash so swift and so silent, it was undetectable even to a top-tier opponent like Borsellino. That was the very slash that had taken him down. Compared to his previous silent blade that only suppressed sound, this was a monumental leap in lethality. Not long after, Rosinante's observation haki evolved once again, gaining the ability to perceive life itself. Typical observation haki detects the presence and strength of people or creatures based on their aura or breath. But life, that was different. Life is an abstract, fundamental force. It's not something ordinary haki users can sense. Yet due to Rosinante's mutated soul, he could now perceive this elusive essence. Rosinante had always believed that if Donquixote do possessed Conqueror's haki, then so could he. After all, they both shared the bloodline of the celestial dragons. And with his transmigrated soul being far stronger than the original, Rosinante was convinced he had the potential. He'd always assumed that Conqueror's haki came from the soul, that it was a spiritual pressure strong enough to knock opponents out cold. So he kept trying to awaken it through soul stimulation. But when his observation haki reached the point where it could perceive life, the truth shocked him. He'd been wrong all along. Conqueror's haki didn't come from the soul. It was an expression of life's hierarchy and natural suppression exerted by higher-level life forms upon the lower. In this world, where physical power reigns supreme, both haki and devil fruit powers require strong bodies to flourish. When certain individuals push their physical limits beyond human boundaries, people like Roger, Whitebeard, Golden Lion, Garp, and the future Yonko, they break free from ordinary constraints. Their very life forms evolve to a higher dimension. The descendants of these monstrous individuals inherit this elevated life potential. Though dormant, it lies hidden within them. Only through firm resolve and intense training can they awaken it. And its manifestation is Conqueror's haki. In essence, Conqueror's haki is a manifestation of higher life suppressing the lower. Those who possess it are born with superior life quality and overwhelming potential. Their growth is unhindered by the typical bottlenecks that limit others. As long as they work hard, greatness is inevitable. That's why the world calls them those with the quality of a king. After awakening his Conqueror's haki, Rosinante's potential surged. His observation haki grew sharper, and shortly after, his Busashoku haki, armament haki, also awakened. And with the power of silence in hand, he developed even more fearsome techniques. By sensing incoming attacks, he could use silence to weaken or completely nullify them. He could even perceive the inner workings of devil fruit users and silence their powers from within. Originally, Rosinante had planned to keep these abilities hidden, reserved for ambushing powerful foes. But when he faced Borsellino, he had no choice. Had he held back then, it would have been him who fell that day. Truthfully, Rosinante was still weaker than Borsellino in raw power. But it was the Admiral's carelessness and Rosinante's perfectly timed counter that turned the tables. Borsellino is strong, Rosinante said, a smirk spreading across his face. But I'll be stronger. You lose to me once, you'll never catch up again. Ha 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 ha. Defeating Borsellino had given Rosinante unmatched confidence. His haki, especially his Conqueror's haki, rose to new heights. From his perch high in the sky, Rosinante used his powerful observation haki to keep tabs on everything. He was fully aware of Kuzan and Sakazuki's fruitless search through Logue Town. But Rosinante didn't want to stir up trouble before the Pirate King's execution. So, he hid suspended in midair, concealed in the sky, far beyond the Marine's reach. There were plenty of skilled haki users in Logue Town, but none could sense him. His own observation haki was powerful beyond compare. And his silent fruit suppressed both breath and sound, natural counters to enemy detection. Unless someone's observation haki was several times stronger than his, they'd never know he was there. Days later, over a dozen massive marine warships arrived at Logue Town's harbor. Sengoku stood waiting with the three monster Vice Admirals and Vice Admiral Kizaru. One by one, powerful marine elites disembarked. No fewer than 10 Vice Admirals, led by none other than the hero of the Marines, Iron Fist Garp. Yo, Sengoku, Kizaru, Garp greeted casually as he stepped off the ship. Everything go smoothly? Sengoku asked with a chuckle. Ran into a few idiotic pirate crews along the way. Took care of M. Garp waved it off with a grin. Still as dashing as ever, Vice Admiral Garp, Kuzan quipped. But judging by the battered state of the warships, things hadn't been as simple as Garp claimed. After all, Roger had conquered the Grand Line and earned the title of Pirate King, the ruler acknowledged by all pirates. Naturally, many pirates were unwilling to see him publicly executed. To them, it was a matter of pride. Dozens of pirate crews had attacked along the way. Had Garp not been part of the escort, the Vice Admirals alone likely wouldn't have been able to bring Roger safely to Logue Town. At that moment, Gold Roger, the Pirate King, began to disembark under heavy marine escort. Roger glanced around at his surroundings and laughed. Logue Town, hi? Been a while. Ha ha ha. Well, I suppose this is what they mean by falling leaves returning to their roots. Despite the shackles on his wrists and ankles, Roger looked nothing like a man on death row. He walked tall, like a victorious general returning from war. Then, he looked up at the sky. Just one glance and Rosinante broke into a cold sweat. Roger had seen him. As expected of the Pirate King, even with life nearing its end, his observation haki is still terrifying. Rosinante exhaled deeply, his heart still pounding as he watched Gold Roger being escorted away by the navy. Just now, with a single casual glance, Roger had spotted Rosinante's hidden presence. It truly lived up to the legend, the strongest observation haki capable of hearing the voices of all things. According to the myths, Roger possessed a form of observation haki so refined that he could perceive the voices of all living and even non-living things. In comparison, ordinary observation haki, once awakened, could detect a creature's aura and presence. With further refinement, it could sense shifts in the surrounding air to predict incoming attacks. Mastery could even let one interpret the tension of muscles and bones to anticipate a foe's next move. Most top-tier experts reached only this level. Even Enel, famed for his formidable observation haki, only reached that stage by leveraging the electromagnetic waves of his rumble fruit to read minds. True perception of weaknesses, and even glimpses of the future, required either extraordinary talent or insane levels of training and often both. Rosinante, thanks to the fusion of two souls, had an exceptionally strong spirit, which granted him outstanding potential in observation haki. But due to his age, he could currently only foresee short-term movements. His ability to sense gravity, kinetic force, devil fruits, and even life itself wasn't solely due to observation haki, it was a unique result of his mutated soul, which granted him a perception far beyond the limits of ordinary beings. As his haki grew, so did these special sensory abilities. With targeted training, he managed to grasp the subtle phenomena that most couldn't even perceive. These weren't standard applications of haki, they were personal powers born from his soul's uniqueness. Roger, on the other hand, had transcended even this. His voice of all things wasn't just the pinnacle of observation haki, it was something divine. He could commune with the hearts of creatures and the will of nature itself. It was said he could even converse with inanimate objects. He could speak with wild beasts, kings of the sea. Just imagine, in a naval battle, if Roger commanded a sea king to fight by his side? That was no longer a fantasy but a terrifying strategic reality. Rosinante even suspected Roger had spoken directly to the will of the heavens. How else could one explain the legendary sea battle of Edwar, when a sudden storm annihilated Golden Lion Shiki's massive fleet while Roger's ship remained untouched? Coincidence? No. Rosinante believed it was the will of the world itself answering Roger's call. If I could train my observation haki to that level, combined with the silent fruit, then no one in the world would be my equal, Rosinante muttered with envy. Even with his soul fusion, training observation haki to the level of the voice of all things required a specific, rare talent. It wasn't something that could be forced, no matter the effort. After Roger was escorted into Logue Town, an eerie calm settled over the city. With heroes like Garp and Admiral Sengoku stationed there, even veteran pirates dared not act rashly. Then, the day of Roger's execution arrived. Roger climbed the execution platform with relaxed, easy steps. He looked like he was out for a stroll rather than walking to his death. His expression remained calm and untroubled. That's the man who once had all the world's fame, wealth, and power, someone below the scaffold gasped in awe. Pirate King Gold Roger, do you have any last words? Asked the Navy officer conducting the execution. Take this thing off, will you? It's itching like crazy, Roger smirked, gesturing to his restraints. That's not happening, replied the executioner coldly. Come on, you think I'm going to run? Roger chuckled. The executioner didn't respond. What a bore, Roger sighed, then casually walked forward and sat cross-legged atop the platform like it was his throne. All right, let's get this over with, he said nonchalantly, as if he were just talking about running an errand. Even the executioners were drenched in cold sweat from his composure. One raised his blade high, preparing to bring it down. Hey, Pirate King! Where'd you hide all your treasure? Someone suddenly shouted from the crowd. Was it really in the Grand Line? You found it, didn't you? The legendary treasure. Shut up, another yelled. Roger began to chuckle. He, ha ha ha. Looking for my treasure. You can have it all, if you want it. Roger's smile widened. Go find it. I left everything, in that place. The executioners realized too late what was happening. One swung down his blade. But the moment had already passed. For 3 heartbeats, the square fell into dead silence. Then came an earth-shattering roar from the crowd. The great pirate era had begun. Rosinante turned and walked toward the bay, his heart stirred by the thundering chorus behind him. All around, dreamers, adventurers, and madmen surged toward the ocean. The seas were about to erupt into chaos. That damn Roger! He played us all! Sengoku snarled furiously. Ha 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 ha! That's Roger for you! Garb roared with unbothered laughter. Garb. This is a global disaster. The seas will plunge into chaos, damn that Roger. Sengoku shouted angrily. What's the big deal? If anyone dares set sail, they'll just have to taste the wrath of my iron fist, Garb replied casually. Kararara. Farewell, Roger. On the deck of the Moby Dick, Whitebeard raised a sake cup toward the sky in salute. Boys. We're heading back to the New World, he shouted, chugging the drink in one powerful gulp. Yes, sir, his crew roared. Foo, this world is about to spiral into madness, Doflamingo sneered. In this new era, as long as you have power, you can have everything. He. Doffy, let's lead the charge and take the Pirate King's treasure. Let's rise to the very top. Diamante cackled. Doffy, you're destined to be king, Treble echoed fanatically. Elsewhere, in a small village, blood splattered the walls as pirates stormed in, blades raised high over trembling civilians. I'm going to be the next Pirate King. How dare you resist me? Kill them all, leave no one alive, one pirate bellowed, as carnage swept the land. And so the sea boiled. The world had changed forever. With the help of the silent gravity, Rosinante possessed the ability to float. However, he couldn't truly fly, he could only run swiftly through the air by stepping on it, his body light as a feather in the absence of gravity. Thanks to his powerful observation haki, Rosinante could hear countless cries of slaughter, looting, and destruction along his journey. His brows furrowed deeper with each step. While Roger's last words had ushered in the Great Pirate Era, spreading chaos that forced the world government and navy to divert their attention, thus easing the pressure on Rosinante, it also plunged countless innocent civilians into the nightmare of pirate tyranny. Rosinante didn't know why Roger chose to ignite the Great Pirate Era. Perhaps Roger had his own reasons, something unavoidable. But one thing was undeniable: ordinary people were now caught in a storm of blood and suffering. Still, Rosinante didn't intervene. The world was already like this, a brutal place soaked in blood. Even if he wanted to help, what could he do? He alone couldn't hold back the tidal wave. And when it came down to it, the true root of this world's darkness lay with the celestial dragons and the world government. Back in Rosinante's previous life, any dynasty whose rulers treated the people as livestock, as the celestial dragons did, would have faced revolt and revolution countless times over. But here, the endless seas divided lands and people, making rebellion difficult. It was this fractured geography that gave rise to the Age of Pirates. As long as the celestial dragons sat atop the world and the world government continued acting with impunity, piracy would never die out. Yet the world government, which had ruled for 800 years, held a foundation far beyond what Rosinante could challenge for now. Disdainful as he was of their tyranny, he was powerless to affect them. What he could do, though, was take advantage of the chaos, build his strength in the shadows while the Great Pirate Era raged, growing without being noticed. One day, when he became strong enough, he would unleash his own storm. The world government had tried to kill him too many times, pushed him to the edge of death again and again. Rosinante hadn't forgotten. He never would. Sooner or later, they would pay. New World, the Kingdom of Joria. Joria was a kingdom rich in iron ore. In this war-torn New World, iron was in constant demand, making Joria a prosperous and well-guarded kingdom. But just days ago, a single sentence from the Pirate King threw the seas into chaos, and in the New World, the heart of that chaos, Joria found itself under siege. For several days, pirates had repeatedly assaulted the kingdom. Fortunately, its wealth allowed it to field a capable military that had managed to repel the attackers. Until now. That day, 3 pirate ships appeared on the waters near Joria. The moment the people of the kingdom saw the flag on those ships, despair spread like wildfire. It was the flag of the Jack Pirates. The Jack Pirates were new arrivals to the New World, yet their reputation already dwarfed many veteran crews. Their captain Jack the Drought was infamous for his bloodlust and merciless nature. Wherever the Jack Pirates went, no grass remained. Cities and lives were reduced to ash. The strength of Jack's crew was unimaginable to the citizens of Joria. The kingdom's royal guards shattered upon first contact. Against a monster like Jack, there was no effective resistance. The nobility, of course, had seen this coming. They'd long since fled, vanishing with their treasures in tow, leaving only the commoners to suffer under the pirate scourge. Lord Fellist. The western line has collapsed. Our forces have taken massive casualties, a battered guard shouted as he climbed the city wall. Fellist, once the deputy commander of the royal guards, hadn't followed the nobles in their cowardly escape. Born a commoner himself, he couldn't bear to see innocent lives slaughtered by pirates. He stayed behind, leading the remnants of the guard in a desperate last stand against Jack. Unfortunately, most of the kingdom's troops had fled with the royals. Those left behind were too few and too weak to put up much of a fight. The defense fell back step by step. How's the evacuation of the civilians? Fellist asked grimly. He knew they couldn't win. All he could hope to do was buy time to let the people escape. But he hadn't anticipated the sheer ferocity of the Jack pirates. Each of them fought like demons, hurling themselves into the fray with no fear for their lives, denying Felist's men even the chance to stall. The evacuation hasn't made much progress. The nobles took almost all the ships when they fled. Only a few small boats remain, and there's no way we can organize a proper escape with those, another soldier reported. Lord Felist. The east line has fallen too. All troops have retreated to the capital, but we won't hold out long, another soldier cried, bursting in. Damn it! Isn't there anything we can do? Felist slammed his fist into the wall in frustration. The Jack pirates are just too strong. Especially their captain Jack the Drought. He's a Zoan-type ancient beast devil fruit user, specifically, the mammoth fruit. He's not someone we can stop with human strength, a guard said through gritted teeth. As he spoke, the Jack pirates came into view, a monstrous mammoth charging ahead with a horde of bloodthirsty pirates in tow, each one grinning with sadistic excitement. To them, the kingdom of Joria was nothing more than a delicious cake waiting to be devoured. Fire the cannons! Aim all of them at Jack. We must not let him get close to the city walls. Felist roared. Boom! Boom! The cannons thundered, hurling shells toward the massive mammoth. Explosions engulfed Jack's form, sending up thick clouds of smoke. But when the smoke cleared, the people of Joria fell into despair. The mammoth was completely unscathed. What are you waiting for? Charge! Wipe everything out! Jack's cold, cruel voice rumbled from within the beast, sending shivers down the spines of his crew. With a bloodthirsty roar, they surged forward, storming toward the capital Mia city. Keep firing! Don't let them near the walls! Felist shouted. Boom! 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 The cannons continued to fire, but under Jack's command, the pirates charged with suicidal fervor, soon reaching the city walls. Using grappling hooks and brute strength, they began to climb. Felist himself drew his blade, leading the defenders into battle. He wasn't weak, his strength was equivalent to a navy captain's. With him at the helm, the guards barely managed to hold the wall for a while. Then came a thunderous crash. The sky itself seemed to tremble as a deafening boom shattered the battlefield. The enormous mammoth had reached Mia city. Jack swung his massive trunk at the wall crack, and a huge section collapsed like sand. Jack! Felist bellowed, eyes burning with fury. He raised his sword and charged straight at the beast. But Jack was too strong. In a single motion, he flung Felist away with his trunk. Damn pirates! Is there really no hope left? Felist coughed up blood as he crashed into the rubble. His forehead was bleeding, his limbs trembling. He couldn't get up. Watching Jack destroy the walls without resistance, Felist's eyes filled with despair. Then, a voice echoed out, calm and composed, cutting through the chaos like a blade. Is this enough to break you? If your hope is lost, then pray for my protection. Declare me your king, and I will take this kingdom under my rule. From this day forward, I swear no pirate shall ever dare invade your lands again. Hearing the sudden voice, Felist instinctively turned toward its source. He saw a teenager, probably in his teens, lounging casually on the city wall. Right beside him, the city guards and the pirates were locked in fierce combat, yet neither side had noticed his presence in the slightest. Who are you, sir? Can you really guarantee that the kingdom of Joria won't fall to these pirates? Don't forget, they're under the command of Mammoth Jack, the captain of the Jack pirates. He has a bounty of 450 million berries. Felist exclaimed, completely demoralized after witnessing Jack's overwhelming power. Ha ha ha! Since I spoke up, of course I have the means to ensure the kingdom of Joria won't be harmed. If I didn't, what would be the point of saying anything at all, the young man said with a light laugh. If you can truly save Joria from being ravaged by pirates, then there's no harm in crowning you king. Felist declared. After all, the nobles and royalty had already fled. If this man could repel Jack, then making him king would be far better than handing the crown to those cowards who abandoned their people. Then the deal is sealed. With a gentle leap, the young man landed from the city wall and slowly began walking toward Jack. Hey, big guy, you heard it too, right? Starting today, the kingdom of Joria is my territory. Would you mind getting the hell out? My kingdom doesn't welcome the likes of you, the young man said as he came to a halt in front of the mammoth. Who the hell do you think you are to speak to me like that? Who gave you the guts to act so arrogantly in front of me? Jack's bloodshot eyes flared with fury as he let out a roar. His massive trunk suddenly raised high and came crashing down toward the young man. Silence, silence, strike! The young man was none other than Rosinante. Using the power of the silence fruit, Rosinante had walked on air from Logue Town, crossing the red line and entering the new world. He knew that after nearly killing Borsellino in Logue Town, the navy would begin to take serious notice of him. The Great Pirate Era had just begun, and although the navy and world government were under immense pressure, they still had the capacity to hunt down individuals like him. Going back to the North Blue was out of the question. The New World, on the other hand, was the region where the Navy and world government had the weakest presence, and it would soon become the epicenter of the coming storm. If Rosinante was to be part of this new age, he had to be here, in the heart of the chaos. So after some thought, Rosinante decided to head into the new world. It didn't take long for him to realize how brutal this sea truly was. The erratic, violent climate of the new world rendered even his silence powers nearly useless in the face of nature's fury. Eventually, Rosinante decided he needed to find a base of operations and build his own power. To find a suitable location, he fully unleashed his observation haki, and that's when the cries from the kingdom of Joria reached his ears. He rushed toward the source and happened to arrive just as Jack was assaulting Mia City. Rosinante wasn't some bleeding heart saint. He hadn't come here to fight Jack just to help the kingdom. After all, even though Jack wasn't yet one of the 3 calamities under Kaido, he was still a major pirate with a bounty approaching 500 million. That level of strength was easily on par with a marine vice-admiral. Rosinante wasn't about to pick a fight with someone like that without a reason. But he needed a base, and being a king didn't sound half bad. That was the reason behind the exchange he just had with Felist. If he could take this kingdom, it would be worth the risk even if it meant confronting Jack. Jack's massive trunk came crashing down like the end of the world. But the moment it struck Rosinante's hand, the impact vanished without a sound. Not even a gust of wind stirred from the collision. Anyone watching might have thought they were acting out a stage play. Captain Jack's attack, it was blocked. The pirates of the Mammoth crew had been closely watching Jack's fight. Seeing Rosinante stop the blow stunned them speechless. He blocked it, he really blocked it. Maybe this man truly can save the kingdom of Joria. Felist gasped in shock. He blocked Mammoth Jack's attack. "We're saved," shouted the citizens and city guards in unison, filled with hope. "If you won't leave, then none of you are leaving," Rosinante declared coldly. Suddenly, an overwhelming pressure exploded from his body. A dominating aura swept through the battlefield. Whether city guards or Mammoth pirates, they all collapsed to the ground unconscious, completely overwhelmed. Within moments, only Jack, Felist, and a few others within a several hundred-meter radius were still standing. "Conqueror's haki," Jack muttered, his brow furrowed in disbelief. "Collapse fist critical strike." Without a sound, Rosinante stepped forward and punched the mammoth. His armament haki-enhanced fist crashed into Jack's massive form. Boom! Jack's enormous mammoth body was launched into the air, sent flying backward. He sent Jack flying. The few conscious onlookers were stunned. Before his transmigration, Rosinante had just completed his university military training. During that time, he asked his instructor to teach him some hand-to-hand combat techniques. The instructor, impressed by Rosinante's performance, shared a few practical skills, mostly defensive maneuvers like joint locks and counters. The only real offensive move he learned was a powerful close-range strike known as the collapse fist. Though he barely scratched the surface back then, after arriving in this world and surviving constant pursuit and life-or-death situations, Rosinante had no choice but to grow stronger. Through merging his own insights and the power of his devil fruit, he developed his own version of the collapse fist. Using the fruit's power, he refined the technique's explosive acceleration and internal striking force. Each punch was utterly silent, storing energy within and piercing through organs with devastating efficiency. Jack hadn't yet been taken in by Kaido and made into one of the Beast Pirates' 3 calamities. Kaido was still a lone monster roaming around looking for fights. Jack, while still powerful, was only on par with a standard marine vice-admiral. However, his ancient Zoan devil fruit gave him tremendous durability, so much so that even vice-admirals found him difficult to deal with. If it had been anyone else, that punch would have sent its force straight through the vital organs, ending the fight. But Jack's sheer durability allowed him to absorb much of the blow. Still, it sent him flying and scattered some of the force. He crashed into the ground with a thunderous impact, forming a deep crater. "Damn it, damn it!" Jack growled as he stood up slowly. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. The punch had still inflicted internal damage despite his defenses. "What insane defense! I hit you with a collapse fist and you only got lightly injured. You really do have a talent for being a punching bag," Rosinante said coolly. "You bastard, you bastard, you bastard!" Jack roared in fury. His body reverted from beast form back into human shape. From his back, he drew 2 massive, sinister scythes. "Destroy! I'll destroy everything you've got," he screamed as he lunged at Rosinante with a violent slash. Rosinante drew the longsword from his waist at the same time. Steel clashed. The force of their collision sent shockwaves flying in all directions. Even nearby boulders were shattered and sent tumbling away from the force of their blows. Felist was utterly stunned as he watched the 2 men clash. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Was this really a fight between humans? It was a spectacle far beyond his imagination. Jack's attacks were wild and frenzied, yet Rosinante met them head-on with no signs of backing down. Their slashes split the earth, toppled city walls, and shattered boulders. It was as if the heavens themselves were collapsing. Felist couldn't help but cry out in disbelief, "Monsters! You bastard, I'm going to tear you apart!" Jack roared as he swung his massive scythe at Rosinante. Clang! Rosinante blocked the scythe with one solid stroke of his blade. "You really are all brute force, huh?" Though Rosinante managed to deflect every one of Jack's slashes, the sheer power carried through the scythe made his arms go slightly numb. But even so, he struck back hard. Jack was just the kind of tough opponent he needed to hone his swordsmanship. Jack's strikes were ferocious and heavy, while Rosinante's counterattacks were swift and precise, landing silently and unpredictably. Each time Jack swung once, Rosinante could return with several sharp blows in an instant. As the battle wore on, Jack's body became covered in deep cuts. Yet, with his freakish defense, he ignored the wounds completely, continuing his relentless assault as if nothing had happened. "Hey! What the hell is going on here? Can someone explain this to me?" a pirate groaned as he slowly woke up after being knocked unconscious by Rosinante's conqueror's haki. His eyes widened in disbelief as he looked at the two fighters locked in battle. As a member of the Mammoth Pirates, he had never imagined that anyone in this tiny Joria Kingdom could stand up to their captain Jack. And by the look of it, Jack seemed to be at a disadvantage, at least from his point of view. After all, Jack was bleeding from dozens of gashes while Rosinante still stood firm. What he didn't know was that Rosinante was also pushing himself to the limit. If he didn't have something stronger up his sleeve, he wouldn't last much longer. How is this possible? One by one, the other pirates and kingdom guards who had been knocked out by the conqueror's haki began to awaken. Rosinante's conqueror's haki had only recently awakened, and although it knocked them out initially, these pirates and soldiers were still people of the New World. Even the weakest among them were far tougher than ordinary men. So they were quick to come to their senses. But once they regained consciousness, they didn't leap back into battle. Instead, they could only stare in awe at Rosinante and Jack, frozen in shock. Clang! In another collision, Rosinante was forced back, sliding several meters from the sheer force channeled through Jack's blade. What terrifying brute strength! A monstrous physique, a savage temperament, and a stubborn will. You'd make a great enforcer. But before I can use you, I'll have to beat you down first. From here on, I'm going all out. Don't die on me, Rosinante said, plunging his longsword into the ground. He abandoned his blade. Lifting both hands, haki began to form around his fists, jet black and dense. Seeing Rosinante give up his sword and rely solely on armament haki, Jack sneered in disdain. In his eyes, Rosinante's haki was newly formed and far too weak to matter. He didn't see it as a threat at all. Then, Rosinante took a step and vanished from sight. Jack's eyes darted frantically, scanning every direction for Rosinante's sudden disappearance. Crushing fist, critical blow. Jack suddenly felt a punch land silently on his abdomen. Only after it hit did he hear Rosinante's voice. The power of the punch sent Jack skidding backward uncontrollably. How is this possible? Jack's face twisted in disbelief. There was no way Rosinante's haki should have been able to bypass his defenses, but that blow had penetrated straight through, landing squarely on his internal organs. Crushing fist, critical blow. Just as Jack steadied himself, he was hit again, this time in the back. Once again, the attack came in complete silence, and only after it landed did Rosinante's voice echo out. The force surged through Jack's haki and struck his insides directly. Crushing fist, critical blow. Crushing fist, critical blow. Felist watched in utter shock as Jack was pummeled around like a rag doll. The same Jack who had been holding his own just moments ago was now being beaten down like a child, completely powerless to resist. And the most terrifying part? With each punch, Jack coughed up more blood. The man who didn't flinch even when slashed by blades was now visibly weakening under Rosinante's relentless fists. Soon, he was barely breathing, teetering on the edge of death. To withstand 108 of my crushing critical blows, most people would have had their organs rupture from just one, and you still cling to life? Impressive. Very impressive, Rosinante said, standing over Jack's unconscious body, his eyes still open but completely blank. If Rosinante hadn't taken him down just now, he himself might have been the one to fall. After all, these strikes took a tremendous toll. He's not dead yet. Felist stammered. Unyielding will. All 5 internal organs ruptured. Bones shattered. Not a single part of his body intact, and yet he still tried to attack me until the end, Rosinante said solemnly. He'll be the greatest shield I and the kingdom of Joria could ask for. Take the rest of the pirates alive. Do not kill them. In the chaos soon to sweep the new world, we'll need all the strength we can get. Yes, sir. Felist now bowed deeply, his loyalty completely solidified. Once the pirates are dealt with, come to the palace, Rosinante said, lifting Jack with one hand by the shoulder. The towering giant was hoisted into the air effortlessly and carried toward the capital's royal palace. As Rosinante walked through the battlefield, the pirates around him immediately dropped their weapons. Though the Jack pirates were known for their madness, without Jack at the helm, none of them were suicidal enough to continue resisting. The royal palace of Joria Kingdom was now eerily empty. The royal family and nobles had all fled. Those who hadn't run off with them had either been killed in the chaos or fled on their own. The palace was vast and grand, but now not a soul remained. Rosinante sat upon the throne and dropped Jack at his side. As a Zoan-type ancient beast user with the mammoth fruit, Jack had not only monstrous defense but incredible regenerative ability. Anyone else with those injuries would be beyond saving, but Jack would recover slowly but surely even without medical attention. Before long, Felist arrived at the palace, leading a contingent of royal guards. "My lord," Felist bowed upon seeing Jack lying unconscious by the throne and turned to face Rosinante. "My lord," the guards echoed in unison, bowing respectfully. After witnessing Rosinante's overwhelming power, their awe had turned to reverence. In this world that revered strength, especially in the New World, power was everything. "Felist, you remember our deal, don't you?" Rosinante said calmly. "You have my word, my lord. It was you who saved the kingdom of Joria. As we pledged, we will crown you king. The people will not oppose it. They would gladly see their savior take the throne. The only problem may be the royal family and nobles who fled. Joria is a member nation of the world government. If the royals report the kingdom's change in leadership, the government may retaliate. For the sake of its authority, the world government will likely send troops to crush any uprising," Felist said with concern. "No need to worry about those nobles. Whether they can even make it to the Red Line and reach the world government is uncertain. And besides, in this age of chaos, the new world belongs to the pirates. The government and navy can barely protect themselves," Rosinante replied indifferently. "In that case, please, your highness, allow us to crown you king of Joria. And may I ask your full name, so I may announce it to the people?" Felist asked with deep reverence. "My name is Donquixote Rosinante," he declared solemnly after a brief pause. After all, he had inherited this body. He would carry its name and its identity forward. He would take that name and identity and ride the storm across the world of One Piece. In this world where only strength matters, he would become a mighty tempest named Rosinante. What a monstrous constitution! "Since you're awake, let's talk," Rosinante said to Jack, who was lying nearby, after Felist and the others had stepped out. To Rosinante's surprise, Jack had regained consciousness in just a short time. Though he hadn't moved and pretended to still be unconscious, Rosinante's mastery of observation haki made Jack's condition crystal clear. "What's there to talk about? If you want to kill me, do it," Jack replied coldly. Just from Rosinante's tone, Jack knew that he had seen through his act. "Is that so? You're really willing to just die like this? Right when the Great Pirate Era is beginning? Before the name Jack even has a chance to echo across the world? You're content with that?" Rosinante said calmly. Jack was a future pirate with a bounty reaching a staggering 1 billion, known for his overwhelming destructive power. But more than that, it was Jack's indomitable will that caught Rosinante's eye enough to make him want to recruit him. "Destruction. As long as I can destroy everything in this world, that's enough. But since I lost, my journey ends here. I don't feel regret, just the simple truth that my strength wasn't enough," Jack replied. "Destruction, huh? Seems you've got a tragic past. You probably hate this world, hate the world government, am I right? Good. I hate this world too. Especially those celestial dragons. Join me. When the time comes to bring destruction, I'll let you do it your way. That way, you'll get to keep destroying," Rosinante said. At Rosinante's words, especially when he mentioned his disdain for the world government and the celestial dragons, Jack gave him a deep, subtle glance. "You think I'd submit to someone like you? Be careful, or I'll destroy you next," Jack growled, eyes full of malice. "If you have the strength, feel free to try," Rosinante answered coolly. As he spoke, Rosinante stepped forward and placed his hand on Jack's chest. A strange power surged from his palm and entered Jack's body. Jack instinctively felt something was wrong and tried to struggle, but his injuries were far too severe. He couldn't break free. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, a strange rune appeared on Jack's body, and Rosinante withdrew his hand. The moment the rune appeared, Jack's wounds began healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Jack looked at his rapidly recovering body in astonishment and slowly stood up, glancing at Rosinante. "This is the silent seal. I'm the silent human, having eaten the silent fruit. I can silence sound, and even silence gravitational force, resistance, and powers like devil fruit abilities. Just now, I condensed a portion of that silent power into a seal and engraved it onto your body. This seal doesn't do much else, it simply silences your injuries. From now on, as long as you have stamina, this seal will consume it to suppress your wounds. As long as you're not instantly killed, and as long as you have strength left, you'll be an almost unkillable monster, Rosinante explained. But that's not the whole story, is it? There's got to be a catch, Jack said coldly. You're right. Since it only silences the injuries, it means they're not truly healed, they're just sealed away. The moment the seal is broken. As Rosinante spoke, the rune on Jack's body began to spin and expand outward. In an instant, all of Jack's suppressed wounds violently reappeared. The pain hit him like a tidal wave. Even someone like Jack who treated pain as a joke collapsed, writhing on the ground in agony. All the wounds you've sustained will explode at once. You're lucky it hasn't been long since I placed the seal, so the accumulated damage is still within your tolerance. But if the seal remains for too long, ordinary battle and training injuries will pile up. And if those injuries are suddenly unleashed after years of accumulation, not even your monstrous body will survive. The seal is controlled by me. So from this moment on, your life is in my hands, Rosinante said coldly. The silent seal, also known as the wound sealing curse, was a technique that had saved Rosinante's life more than once. Inspired by Bartholomew Kuma, Rosinante had developed the ability to silence injuries. But in actual combat, it was nearly impossible to both fight at full power and suppress injuries at the same time. High-level battles allowed no distractions, one moment's lapse could decide life or death. So Rosinante thought, what if the sealing could be automatic? Devil fruits, especially those of the paramecia type, were powers rooted in the laws of reality. Through relentless research and comprehension, Rosinante finally created a series of sealing techniques that could suppress injuries on their own. The seal would automatically consume stamina to maintain itself. Any damage received whether from battle or daily training would be silently sealed away. Unlike Jack, Rosinante would periodically release the seal in small bursts. Minor injuries posed no threat to him and even helped toughen his body, so the seal had no downside for him. But Jack was different. If Rosinante ever lifted the seal completely, all of Jack's battle and training wounds would erupt at once. Not even a god could save him then. Huff, huff. Jack panted heavily. The rune on his body closed again, sealing his injuries once more. His wounds visibly faded, but the memory of that pain carved itself deep into his mind. Even with his terrifying willpower, Jack felt a chill. After all, those wounds had just exploded all at once as if Rosinante had landed hundreds of crushing punches on him simultaneously. Even Jack, who was ruthless to enemies and even more ruthless to himself, had nearly broken. You think this little trick is enough to control me? Jack growled after catching his breath. Until you find a way to break the silent seal, you have no choice. Because you don't want to die. You still have things you want to destroy. As long as that desire exists, you'll have to obey me at least until you figure out how to lift the seal, Rosinante replied. You're right. I don't want to die, not like this. Dying now would leave me full of regret. But be warned, if I do find a way to break this seal, I'll destroy you along with everything else. Good. Jack, here's your first mission, take your crew and hunt down the nobles and royals who fled from the Joria Kingdom. I don't want a single one of them left alive in this world, Rosinante said casually. The royals and nobles of Joria were still a threat. Rosinante wasn't ready to fully expose himself to the navy or world government just yet. I'll twist off each of their heads, one by one, Jack replied coldly. Felist. Rosinante called out. Moments later, Felist re-entered the room. Take Jack to regroup with his pirate crew. Starting today, he'll lead his men in forming the Mammoth Fleet, the first royal guardian fleet of the Joria Kingdom, Rosinante ordered. Felist's jaw dropped. He stared in disbelief at Rosinante. Jack, the violent and domineering pirate, and his Jack pirates, were going to become their royal guardian fleet? Rosinante had actually tamed Jack? It was almost too much to comprehend. What? Is there a problem? Rosinante asked. And no, none at all. Felist replied quickly. He understood one thing clearly, the new world was in chaos. Countless powerful pirates were surging in. The kingdom's once reliable royal guard was no longer capable of protecting them. Even if they had defeated Jack and his crew this time, there would be another pirate crew next time. Maybe not as brutal as Jack's, but still dangerous. If they could turn Jack's crew into their protectorate fleet, it would be an enormous advantage for the Joria Kingdom. Felist only had one lingering concern: could a monster like Jack truly be tamed? What if he changed his mind? Pirates weren't known for keeping promises. But that wasn't something he had the power to worry about. After Felist led Jack away, Rosinante couldn't help but chuckle with satisfaction. It was no wonder he was in such a good mood after all. Jack would one day become one of the three disasters of the Beast's pirates, a powerhouse with a bounty of 1 billion berries, a true monster of the seas. And now, this monster was under his command. At last, Rosinante had someone truly formidable who could hold the line on his behalf. With the kingdom of Joria as a foothold, I'll recruit the rising stars flooding into the new world. That way, I can assemble a force of my own at lightning speed. The only problem is, the Navy and the world government surely won't just sit back and watch me grow unchecked. If they send admirals, I won't be able to stop them with my current strength. I need a plan, Rosinante mused, his eyes sharp. At the same time, in the Marine headquarters Marineford. Sengoku, what the hell is going on with you people? Do you realize the magnitude of this mess? Roared the current Fleet Admiral, Kong, his voice booming across the war room. My apologies, Fleet Admiral. This was my error. I got outmaneuvered by Roger, Sengoku admitted without excuse. Sigh, fine. Things have gotten to this point, there's no use blaming you. I'll explain the situation to the 5 elders myself. But we're in deep trouble now. Thanks to Roger's last words, people all over the world are rushing to the seas. Pirate assaults are slamming marine bases across the globe. If this continues, how can we still speak of justice on the seas? Kong's tone softened a little upon hearing Sengoku take responsibility, but the concern in his eyes only deepened. He knew full well that this outcome wasn't Sengoku's fault. The moment the world government decided to publicly execute Roger, the damage was already done. No amount of Navy precaution could have stopped Roger from saying what he wanted in his final moments. There's one more thing. According to CP's intelligence, Roger may have left behind an heir. This will be your responsibility no matter what. We must find the Pirate King's bloodline, Kong ordered. Yes, sir. Sengoku nodded solemnly. And one more thing, what happened in Logtown with Borsalino? How did he end up defeated? You understand how serious this is? Borsalino and the other 2 are the Navy's rising stars. They're meant to become our future top combat strength. If they're being beaten so easily, how can they possibly shoulder that title in the future? Kong questioned grimly. That's exactly what I wanted to report, sir. We need to pay close attention to one individual, Donquixote Rosinante. He's the one who defeated Borsalino in Logtown, Sengoku said. Donquixote? That name, is he a former celestial dragon? Kong's face turned grave the moment he heard the name. Anything involving the celestial dragons was never a small matter, even if the Donquixote family had already been stripped of their status. Yes, sir. Former celestial dragon Donquixote Rosinante Doflamingo's younger brother. And I fear, he may be even more dangerous than Doflamingo himself, Sengoku replied. He's only in his teens now, isn't he? You're telling me he already has the strength to defeat Borsalino? Kong asked, clearly skeptical. Rosinante has the silent fruit. He's about on par with an average vice admiral, but what's terrifying is his freakish talent for devil fruit development. He's managed to evolve the fruit to the point where he can silence other abilities including devil fruit powers. Borsalino lost because he underestimated that ability, Sengoku explained. He can silence devil fruit powers. Kong's eyes widened. You're certain? He asked, his tone stern. Judging from the battle with Borsalino, yes. Rosinante can indeed suppress devil fruit abilities, but there are limitations. According to Borsalino, if he had been prepared, Rosinante might not have succeeded. Plus, he needs to make physical contact to activate the ability. That's why I recommend raising his bounty, Sengoku said. How much are you thinking? Kong asked. 230 million berries, Sengoku replied. You want to raise it by nearly 200 million in one go. Kong fell silent, deep in thought. He's got Vice Admiral level strength and had been hiding it before. 230 million isn't too high, Sengoku added. Make it 300 million. We can't let this one continue to grow unchecked, Kong said firmly. 300 million. Sengoku was clearly stunned. In this era, before the age where bounties of several hundred million became the norm, a bounty exceeding 100 million already marked someone as a feared and famous pirate. And yet Rosinante, who hadn't even entered the Grand Line, was being given 300 million berries. It was unprecedented. I'll send a Vice Admiral who isn't a devil fruit user to deal with him. Your top priority now is still finding the Pirate King's heir, Kong said. Understood. Sengoku bowed his head. The Navy believed Rosinante was still in the Four Blues, or perhaps in the first half of the Grand Line. What they never imagined, was that he'd already stepped into the New World. In the Kingdom of Joria, the royal plaza before the palace was packed with countless citizens, all standing with anticipation in their eyes, gazing toward the palace steps, waiting for a single person to emerge. Lord Rosinante is coming out, someone cried out excitedly. All eyes turned toward the palace's high platform. A young man dressed in magnificent robes slowly stepped out, flanked by a procession of palace guards. Lord Rosinante, the crowd erupted in cheers. When our kingdom was under pirate attack, and the royals and nobles fled like cowards, it was he who descended from the skies to defeat those pirates and protect us. Today, I Felist along with the royal guard of the kingdom of Joria, hereby proclaim him our king. May he forever shield us and protect the kingdom of Joria. Felist declared, dropping to one knee before Rosinante. We pledge ourselves to your majesty. Please protect the kingdom of Joria forever, the royal guard echoed in unison. Long live King Rosinante! Long live King Rosinante! The people roared together, their voices like a wave of hope crashing against the scars of recent tragedy. The citizens of the Joria Kingdom had just endured their homes being pillaged, their kin slaughtered by bloodthirsty pirates. They longed desperately for someone powerful to protect them, and Rosinante, the man who saved them, was now their only beacon of hope. From this day forward, I am the king of the kingdom of Joria. Under my protection, any who dare infringe even a single hair of this kingdom will be my enemy. Rosinante declared, his voice booming across the plaza. Yeah! As the cheers of the Joria people thundered around him, Rosinante solemnly placed the crown of the kingdom upon his head, the symbol of his new reign. Lord Jack, ahead lies the fleet carrying the fleeing nobles and royals of the Joria Kingdom, a former member of the Jack pirates reported aboard the Mammoth. Prepare for battle. Target that fleet ahead, leave no survivors. Jack ordered coldly. Yes, sir, the crew member responded immediately. But Captain Jack, are we really going to take orders from that man now? We've already broken free, why not just roam the seas freely? Why become some bodyguard for a backwater kingdom like Joria? The crewman asked hesitantly. You questioning my orders? Jack turned a chilling gaze on him. And no, not at all. Cold sweat broke out on the crewman's forehead. Seeing his terrified expression, Jack turned away and ignored him. If this weren't one of his trusted men and the navigator at that, Jack would have already turned him into paste. Truthfully, Jack had no interest in serving as the Joria Kingdom's guard dog. But for now, he had to endure. Until he found a way to break free from the oppressive silence of that cursed fruit's power. A bloodthirsty glint flickered in Jack's eyes. Alarm! Pirate ship approaching from the rear. Oh no, it's the Jack pirates' ship, the Mammoth. Panic erupted among the fleeing nobles aboard the Joria Kingdom's fleet. This can't be. Weren't the Jack pirates attacking the capital? Why are they chasing us now? Has the kingdom already fallen? One noble stammered in disbelief. Impossible. There were so many people in Joria, it's too soon for them to have wiped them all out. You idiots, what are you standing around for? Full speed ahead. If they catch us, we'll meet the same fate as those filthy peasants. Boom! 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 As the nobles screeched in panic and shouted for speed, a barrage of cannon fire thundered from the Mammoth. The nobles, already scared out of their minds, had no thought of resistance. They only wanted to escape. But greedy as they were, they'd loaded every ship with the kingdom's treasures and refused to throw any of it overboard. The overloaded fleet moved sluggishly, and before long, the Mammoth caught up. Screams and wails echoed across the fleet. Compared to the civilians, the nobles were utterly useless in a crisis. At the sight of Jack, they didn't even resist. The one man who might have helped the former royal guard commander was a weakling who got his post through connections. He was even weaker than Felist and was crushed to a pulp by a single blow from Jack. You can take the treasure. Just spare our lives, one of the nobles pleaded. Boring, Jack sneered. Kill them all. The Jack pirates descended on the fleeing fleet with vicious grins. I'm the king of the Joria Kingdom. Our kingdom is a world government affiliate. You'll bring the wrath of the Marines down upon you. I've already sent a distress call, they're coming. If you don't want to be annihilated, leave now, the former king of Joria said, trembling. Idiot! Are you threatening me? Jack said, voice cold as steel. He reached out, grabbed the former king by the head, and slammed him into the deck. Crack! The deck shattered under the force. Blood poured from the king's skull, his eyes wide with disbelief. Scum, scum, scum! Jack snarled, not stopping. Again and again, he lifted the lifeless king and smashed him into the deck until he was nothing more than a pulp of blood and shattered bone. The nobles had become the perfect outlet for Jack's pent-up rage. Kill! Not a single one lives, he ordered with a final cold stare. Kill! The Jack pirates roared in glee, charging into the terrified nobles with twisted delight. Back at the Joria Kingdom Palace. Your Majesty, repairing the city walls will require 700,000 berries. Your Majesty, the residents urgently need lumber for rebuilding. Your Majesty, over 10,000 citizens are severely injured and in desperate need of treatment, but we lack doctors. Your Majesty, most of the villages and towns were destroyed by the pirates. People are sleeping in the streets. This must be addressed quickly. Your Majesty, the royal treasury is nearly empty. We can't fund government operations. Rosinante hadn't expected ruling even a tiny kingdom to come with such a flood of responsibilities. In his previous life, he was just a college student. What did he know about governance? His head was starting to spin. There's nothing left in the royal treasury. Rosinante asked. Your Majesty, when the royals and nobles fled, they took all the national treasures with them. The kingdom's coffers are nearly dry. If we don't find a way to replenish them, the entire kingdom might collapse, Felist reported grimly. He wasn't exaggerating. The people had just survived a massacre and were emotionally on edge. They desperately needed the kingdom's help to get back on their feet. But if the government couldn't provide aid, unrest would erupt, especially if some ambitious agitators stirred the pot. Despite Rosinante saving them, there were still many who didn't want a foreigner ruling over them. The world wasn't lacking in schemers, and the new world was crawling with them. People are like that, in crisis, they pray for salvation. But once the storm passes, they start plotting how to protect their own interests. If Rosinante couldn't meet their expectations, they'd begin to wonder if an outsider like him could become king, why couldn't they? An ambition would quickly blind them to his overwhelming power. I understand. I'll figure something out about the money. As for housing, the nobles ran off, didn't they? Reclaim their estates. Any noble who refused to stand with the people during the kingdom's crisis is no noble at all. Strip them of their titles and confiscate all their assets. Let the displaced citizens take shelter in their abandoned homes, Rosinante said. Understood, Your Majesty. Felist replied with determination. I wonder if Jack caught up to those nobles. Now that I'm king, their stolen treasure is mine. I won't let them get away with it. With that thought, Rosinante lightly kicked off the ground and with explosive speed, soared into the sky. A powerful step crushed the air beneath him, and in an instant, he shot through the sky like a cannonball toward the horizon. Rosinante streaked through the air at incredible speed, blasting the air beneath his feet with each step to propel himself faster and faster. Thanks to the seal of silence binding on Jack, Rosinante could clearly sense his location, and it didn't take long before he locked onto Jack's position. By the time Rosinante arrived, the battle, or rather, the massacre, was nearly over. Jack wasn't even fighting anymore, he was venting his fury by stringing up several nobles and unleashing his wrath upon them. You look like you're having a great time. Got all that rage out yet? Rosinante said calmly as he descended from the sky. Seeing Rosinante, Jack's brow furrowed slightly. He found me. No vivre card, yet he could still locate me in this vast sea? Looks like that seal does more than just suppress my power, it lets him track me too. What do you want? You think I'm gonna run or something? Jack said with disdain. I'm just here to check on the treasure that rightfully belongs to the kingdom of Joria. And to let you know, the navy's on its way, Rosinante said flatly. As soon as his words fell, 3 enormous warships appeared on the horizon. Captain. Trouble. The navy's here. Judging by the size of those ships, there's probably a vice-admiral aboard, a lookout from the mammoth fleet reported urgently. Jack, however, didn't show a trace of panic. Instead, he smirked with schadenfreude and said, so you're here for the treasure the nobles tried to smuggle out. But now that the navy's here, taking it back won't be that easy for you. Rosinante didn't even blink. Doesn't matter. The kingdom of Joria is already on the verge of collapse. If the navy tries to stop me, I'll just blow them away. Got it? Jack sneered. Then let's blow them away. All hands, full speed ahead, sink the navy. Yes, Captain. At Jack's command, the ships of the mammoth fleet surged forward and unleashed a barrage of cannon fire toward the navy. Rosinante blinked in surprise. This guy really is a war maniac. No hesitation, just straight into a fight. Looks like there's no avoiding this clash after all. But, this opponent isn't someone to underestimate. Rosinante turned to gaze at the incoming warships and sighed. If I had a choice, I'd rather not go head-to-head with that red dog. Red dog? Jack raised an eyebrow. Vice Admiral Sakazuki of Marine Headquarters, Rosinante answered. Great eruption. As if on cue, a thunderous roar erupted from one of the marine ships. A massive lava fist flew through the air, obliterating all incoming cannonballs. The searing lava exploded mid-air like a volcanic eruption, hurling molten rocks toward the mammoth fleet. What a pain! Rosinante muttered. He stood up and looked toward the incoming volcanic bombs. The treasure from Joria was still on these ships, he couldn't let them be destroyed. Jack certainly wouldn't lift a finger to protect them, he was probably hoping the ships would sink just to see Rosinante suffer. Which meant Rosinante had to act. Silent demon eyes, gravity mute. Rosinante's eyes glowed with a dark, eerie light. To activate the silence power, Rosinante usually had to make physical contact. It wasn't that he couldn't project the power over a distance, it just became much weaker. So, he created a solution, silent demon eyes. By channeling his power into his gaze, he could transmit the silence effect to any point his eyes could reach. It wasn't as potent as direct contact, but far more effective than casting blindly through the air. As Rosinante's gaze swept over the volcanic bombs, their gravitational pull suddenly vanished. Boom boom boom. Without gravity to hold them down, the lava bombs flew upward, arching away from the ships and detonating harmlessly in the distance. Spectacular, but ineffective. Quite the fireworks show, Rosinante chuckled, watching the explosions light up the sky. You. Sakazuki's eyes narrowed. You're Rosinante the Silent Blade. Such an honor, Rosinante smiled, Vice Admiral Sakazuki recognizing a nobody like me. Anyone who defeated Borsalino isn't a nobody, Sakazuki said coldly. Congratulations. The bounty on your head is about to rise to 300 million berries. Though, I doubt the wanted poster will even matter. Because today, you're coming with me to impel down. While he didn't fully approve of Borsalino's laziness, Sakazuki had always acknowledged his strength. After learning that Rosinante had defeated Borsalino, Sakazuki had taken note of this dangerous new figure. Impel down, huh? Not exactly my kind of vacation spot, Rosinante smirked. Perfect, Sakazuki sneered. Then I'll just execute you right here. Hellhound Fang. A massive dog's head made of molten lava surged forward from his arm, snapping toward Rosinante with terrifying force. Their ships had drawn close during the conversation, and the attack reached Rosinante in the blink of an eye. Your opponent's not just me, you know. Rosinante laughed. Silence technique, heat mute. Rosinante raised his hand, wrapped in armament haki and devil fruit energy, and grabbed the incoming lava beast. The moment his fingers touched the molten attack, its heat rapidly diminished. It couldn't burn through Rosinante's haki-enhanced arm, and with a single squeeze, Rosinante crushed the lava hound into fragments. You talk too much. That's why I always say you navy types are like old ladies, came a new, maniacal voice. Jack, completely ignoring tactics or support, had leapt straight onto the marine ship and charged Sakazuki head-on. His bizarre scythe whistled through the air toward the Vice Admiral. Dark Hound. Sakazuki met him with a haki-coated fist of molten lava. Their clash sent Jack flying across the deck, smashing through the bulkhead and leaving a gaping hole in the warship. Damn, that actually hurt, Jack muttered as he slowly stood up. No wonder you're one of the Navy's monster Vice Admirals. A Logia user with the magma fruit, huh? Strangely enough, his body showed no visible injuries. Sakazuki narrowed his eyes. That was a direct hit, but he looks completely unharmed. Jack also furrowed his brow and glanced at the spot where Sakazuki's fist had struck. That punch broke through my armament haki, the magma burned my chest almost completely, nearly punched straight through me. Definitely one of the three monstrous Vice Admirals. But now, I look totally fine. The silence binding, huh? I like it. Makes it easier to go wild without worrying about the pain. Jack burst into mad laughter and charged again, aiming straight for Sakazuki. What a lunatic, charging at Sakazuki head-on, Rosinante muttered as he watched Jack go berserk in a one-on-one clash with the Vice Admiral. Mammoth Fleet, hear me. You are to retreat immediately, and take the treasure ships with you. This fight is no longer one you can be part of. The crew of the Mammoth Fleet hesitated at his order. Of course they wanted to retreat after witnessing Sakazuki's terrifying, earth-scorching powers, they had already lost the will to fight. Though they were bloodthirsty and brutal by nature, that didn't mean they were eager to die. Yet, they also knew Jack all too well. If they ran now, Jack would surely annihilate them in the future. What's wrong? Do you have a problem with my order? Rosinante's voice turned colder as his gaze swept across the hesitant pirates. As he spoke, a domineering and suffocating aura surged toward the Mammoth Fleet like a tidal wave. Under its pressure, cold sweat poured down their faces as if death himself had cast his eyes on them. Ever since Rosinante had taken the throne of the Joria Kingdom, his presence had grown stronger, refined by his newfound station. Power deepens the spirit, true to that saying, his conqueror's haki had matured with him. He could now exert it with deliberate control. Though his aura didn't knock the pirates unconscious, it crushed their will to resist. And no, we wouldn't dare. We obey, your majesty. The crew was terrified out of their minds. Remember, Rosinante said calmly, if those treasures reach me safely, your lives stay intact. If they don't, well, neither will you. Why yes, sir. The Mammoth Fleet crew scrambled in a panic to steer the ships around. Rosinante's tone was light, but in their ears, it sounded like the devil's whisper, a sound that made their blood run cold and left no room for defiance. Don't even think about escaping lava surge, great eruption. Sakazuki's fist, transformed into a surging volcanic torrent, exploded toward Rosinante and the retreating Mammoth Fleet. Whoosh! Rosinante's figure vanished, blinking into the sky right in front of the massive molten hand. Silence, heat suppression. Silence, power nullification. He raised his palm calmly and pressed it forward. The infernal lava surged forth like a volcanic arm, massive and overwhelming, but right in front of it, Rosinante's hand looked like a leaf before a tidal wave. And yet, it stopped. The searing flood halted completely before that seemingly fragile palm. The collision was silent, but its impact resounded in the hearts of all watching. I can't let you destroy my fleet, Vice Admiral, Rosinante said with a smile. Those ships are carrying treasures I very much need. Sakazuki's eyes darkened as he glared at Rosinante. His molten fist continued to surge, pumping lava forward in a relentless tide. Rosinante stood firm, nullifying the heat and impact with his silent force, holding the line. Let's see how long you can keep this up. Leave one ship behind the rest of you, pursue the pirates. Sakazuki barked over his shoulder. Yes, sir. Target, Jack pirates. Commence pursuit, the Vice Admiral second in command bellowed. You bastard! Don't ignore me! Jack roared as he sprang up from where he'd been sent flying. Blood trickled from his lips, and his eyes burned with madness as he hurled himself at Sakazuki again. The battle had wounded more than just Jack's body, it had shattered his pride. He might have been strong enough to stand toe-to-toe with an average Vice Admiral, but Sakazuki was different. With power nearing that of an admiral, wielding the terrifying magma fruit, Sakazuki overwhelmed Jack in haki, combat experience, and devil fruit mastery. Jack had been struck multiple times. Without Rosinante's silent recovery seal on him, he would have already collapsed from fatal injuries. Now, driven half-mad by the one-sided thrashing, he charged once more. Humph! I had no time for you before, but if you insist on dying so be it. Sakazuki's voice was cold as he swept his molten arm wide. Lava surge, great eruption. A torrent of magma, like a volcanic explosion incarnate, engulfed Jack in an instant. No. Rosinante's expression changed drastically. This wasn't just a punch, it was a volcanic cataclysm. Sakazuki's lava didn't just burn, it erased. The surging wave surrounded Jack, searing through his armament haki and igniting his flesh. Even with his immense resilience, Jack couldn't endure this unscathed. Soul-severing slash. Rosinante drew his blade. Faster than anyone could react, the sword flashed silently so fast that there wasn't even a glint of steel. The next moment, the volcanic arm that had just incinerated Jack, was cleaved clean off. His arm. He cut off Sakazuki's arm. That's the slash that injured Borsellino. Sakazuki looked at the stump of his missing arm with no hint of panic. So, that's your famed soul-severing slash. Quiet, invisible, formless, and faster than lightning. As he spoke, magma oozed from his severed shoulder, quickly reforming the arm. In mere moments, his body was whole again. The truth was, Sakazuki had reacted in time. At the moment of the strike, he had elementalized his body, avoiding a fatal injury as only a seasoned Logia user could. No blade light, no sound, and speed beyond belief. Truly worthy of the name soul-severing. Sakazuki's tone was low and menacing as his gaze fixed on Rosinante. You flatter me, Rosinante chuckled. If I were really that good, your arm wouldn't be back on you right now. You're still lacking, that's true, Sakazuki admitted grimly. But that only means I can't allow you to grow any further. If left unchecked, you'll be an even greater threat than Roger. Oh dear, don't say that, Rosinante smiled. Those kinds of compliments are heavy enough to kill someone. Bastard. Jack's roar echoed from the lava storm as Sakazuki's eruption finally ceased. The wounded beast emerged, body charred, breath ragged, barely able to stand. Despite his monstrous durability and decent armament haki, the searing lava had burned through to his skin. Scorch marks marred his hulking frame, and pain racked his every step. He's hurt, Rosinante observed silently. Looks like Jack's stamina is nearly gone. Sakazuki really is a future admiral-level powerhouse. His growth, especially as a Logia user, is leagues ahead of most at this stage. It's time to retreat. He's still alive. Sakazuki glanced at Jack, but didn't pay him much mind. His attention remained locked on Rosinante. Jack wasn't yet a threat worthy of focus. Mind if I take him? Rosinante asked with a grin. He's the first underling I've ever accepted. The guy's got potential, I can't let you burn him to ash just yet. Both of you are staying here today, Sakazuki growled, eyes murderous. Let's not be hasty now, Rosinante replied. As he spoke, he vanished like a bolt of lightning only to reappear right before Sakazuki, his blade already sweeping in a silent arc toward the Vice Admiral's neck.